Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of CEO and Market Expert Interviews. I'm your host, Lucian. Some of you know me as Triangle Investor from social medias. I'm joined today by David Cates, Denison Mines CEO, and Keith Bodnarchuk, CEO of Cosa Resources. We will talk about the agreement to form exploration joint venture on three projects and in which Cosa could acquire 70% interest. Gents, thank you very much for coming. Great to see you both here.
Oh, of course, Lucian. Thank you for having us.
Great to be here.
Thanks. Of course, I would like to hear both angles about this transaction, but let's start maybe first with the transaction details. Keith, can you cover this, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are, as you mentioned, acquiring 70% interest in three exciting projects in the Eastern Athabasca Basin. In return, Denison will become our largest shareholder at just under 20%. There's a few other details involved. We'll be doing some initial funding on two of the projects. Denison will be excitingly appointing two members to our board. They've put up their hand to participate in a future equity financing for us. I encourage people to look at the news release for the exact details. But essentially, we're acquiring these three exciting projects, and Denison is going to get a large piece of us and become really our most strategic shareholder going forward.
Yeah, seems like a lot of synergies here with you too. David, why Cosa and how do you see this cooperation going forward?
Yeah, good question. Look, I mean, our focus here is on with the company at Denison is on development and mining. And so what we've been looking to do is take our really vast and well-situated exploration portfolio and make sure that it's worked in a way that exposes us to discovery. We certainly have an interest in having more resources and future reserves in our company that we can use the cash flow from Phoenix to develop in the future. And so we certainly were seeking ways to take projects that we were unable to work in the next 3 to 5 years based on the way we were prioritizing our efforts and put them in capable and trustworthy hands so that they could be advanced. Because at the end of the day, we're in the business of trying to find and then ultimately mine and develop the uranium. But there were lots of parties that would have an interest in transacting with us. And what we were focused on was two parts. One, structures and transaction structures that would incentivize actual exploration. We were trying to steer clear of groups that would, enter into a transaction only to then promote the assets for the next X number of years, for the sake of having a share price go up or go down, but not actually do any work on the assets. So that was number one, was being able to find a counterparty that would agree to a structure that involved actual work on the projects. And then number two was finding a counterparty that, would be capable of taking the projects and doing valuable, high potential exploration. Because at the end of the day, we want to make the discovery on these projects. We know that we weren't going to work them. It doesn't mean that we don't want them to be worked. And so that was key. We know the team at COSA well. Keith used to work for us here at Denison. Keith's VP Exploration, Andy Carmichael, used to work for us at Denison, and his chairman, Steve Blower, used to work for us at Denison. So these are known commodities, this team, and we know that they're very capable. They know geology in the Athabasca Basin at a very high expert level. And so to be able to put these projects with them, it was an excellent pairing. And I think maybe just one point, Keith, on the structure. A really important element to us is that we retain 30% direct interest in the projects. So this is not an exit transaction on these projects. These are not spare parts. They're projects that we will have a direct 30% interest in, that COSA is going to work, has to work, and at the same time, we are COSA's largest shareholder. So it's a bit of a bear hug on these projects, which should signal to the market that these are good projects. These are projects that we did not want to abandon. These are projects that we want worked and that we want to maintain a really significant interest in.
Understood. David, what was done so far on those projects? I mean, was there any modern exploration done on those three projects?
Yeah, they're in various states. I would say that the COSA team actually knows the state of those projects really well. And from our standpoint, they're ready for discovery. They just weren't sort of making our list when we were allocating our capital. And you'll see in our budgets coming up that our focus continues to be right around Wheeler River. That's obvious. We're building a plant there for Phoenix. We're looking for satellite deposits right around Wheeler River. What these projects are is they're located, in a few different locations, but generally the two primary ones are located more in the north around like our Waterbury Lake and importantly around the Hurricane deposit. And so while this is a very interesting area, it's not exactly our prime focus. I don't know, Keith, you might want to elaborate on the
Yeah.
historical work because you might have done some of that historical work on these projects.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So the Murphy Lake North project that David touched on there, it is located right next to the Hurricane deposit, which our management team discovered in 2018 during our time at ISO Energy. It hasn't seen much drilling. It's seen a little bit of drilling, and from those few holes that have been there, it has intersected the stuff that we're looking for with that structure and alteration and a little bit of mineralization. But importantly, with all these projects, like David said, they are discovery ready. They do have some drilling that's happened on them, but that drilling just really helped paint a picture for what we want to look for and really upgraded the target areas and hasn't really killed off anything because, like you said, Denison's been busy in and around the Phoenix area. They haven't had a chance to get to go after these projects. And, a lot of them came in through different acquisitions over the years that Denison did. And, they are in fantastic tier one areas, but obviously Denison couldn't get to them. And the Darby project itself is right next to Cigar Lake. It's butting up against Cameco's ground there. It's one where there's just a series of single hole fences. At the time, people when we were exploring, we'd target a conductor, and if we hit it with a single hole, we'd move on from the area. And so what we're learning now is that a lot of these conductive zones might actually be broad. There could be parallel conductors beside it. And so, that's ultimately how the team found Hurricane when we were at ISO, right? It was following up. The previous operator thought they intersected the proper conductor. We ultimately stepped back and hit Hurricane. And so I think people have learned along the way how to target these things a little bit better. And, I was probably guilty of it myself early on in my career too. This is just what we were doing kind of in that 2007, 2010 range. And so there's a lot of opportunity on these projects. And Denison knows that. That's why they're maintaining that interest in us and also in the projects. And, I think they're also excited by the portfolio we currently have. And I think we didn't talk about this, that this deal gives them exposure to our other projects too, what we're quickly advancing. And these three projects we're getting are discovery ready, whereas some of our other projects, we've had to build it up to that, right? We've had to do a lot of modern geophysics, really put a lot of dollars to work to build up an URSA, to build up some of our other projects. So for us to be able to get these three projects that are at a more advanced, mature stage, is a huge win for us.
Yeah, Keith, when we add these three projects to your portfolio, you have more than 15, if I'm not mistaken, at the moment, 16, 15, sorry. I believe it's more than 15 across the Athabasca. How do you plan to prioritize them?
Yeah, definitely. The thing with exploration is you kind of have to take it that drill it and kill it approach. You're always looking to upgrade the pipeline. When we were at ISO Energy, it was actually our seventh project where we ultimately found the Hurricane deposit. And so you have to take that approach where you drill it and kill it. Some of our other projects will probably ultimately move on from now, since we have been able to significantly upgrade the pipeline by bringing in these three projects. But you can't get married to the one project. If it's not showing what you want, move on. And we've always taken that approach. And, Murphy Lake North, which is obviously right next to the Hurricane deposit, will be a top priority for us heading into Q1 next year. But like I said, if it's not showing what we want, we'll be ready with Darby, Packrat, and URSA, and some of our other projects. And so you do have to have that balance. You have to make sure you always have that constant pipeline of targets, and you have to be ready to move on if it's not showing what you want.
Yeah,
Murphy, Lucian,
yeah.
sorry to interject. I mean, the thing is, we're going to support that process. I mean, part of our transaction involves technical advisory and partnering up with COSA on this as well. They have a very capable team, but we also want to oversee the choices that are being made and the work that's happening to a small degree. And so, Keith's going to have a lot of work to go into prioritizing the targets, and we want to make sure we help with that. So, we're going to add our perspectives on that as well. And I think that'll make that process of allocating, where to go, we're going to try to help with that.
Okay, so this is partnering on multiple levels, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you sorry, Alicia, if you take a step back and think about that, Denison discovered Griffin and Phoenix. I got to spend time working on there. Our group's been involved with obviously Hurricane, and then at a corporate level, even Arrow. And so I think this is a lot of people coming together that's had a lot of success to pick these next set of targets. I think that's a tremendous outcome.
Yeah, Murphy is 3 kilometers, 3.2 kilometers from Hurricane. That is fantastic. Is it on the same geological trend as Hurricane deposit?
So that there's that big broad Laroque Lake trend that will come through there, and so the northern part of it, you'll see that there's a portion of that would cover along that same Hurricane trend, and importantly, there's also this parallel trend where we have about 6 or 7 kilometers of it. It's the exact same orientation as the Hurricane trend, and really that's honestly one of the most, I guess you'd call it, almost juiced up areas of the Athabasca Basin where Hurricane's not a one-hit wonder along that trend. There's multiple areas where they've hit significant grade. And so anytime you get a chance to kind of go explore in that area, I mean, you trip over yourselves to make it happen.
Yeah, yeah. David, this is not your first transaction where you optioned your non-core exploration projects. Like you said, you have a deal with Foremost Clean Energy as well. Is this you mentioned the portion of it. Is this your strategy going forward to option the remainder of your exploration non-core assets and stay focused on like you said, on Wheeler, on the near production development assets?
Yeah, I mean, it has been a slightly broader strategy to do this. We have a few investments throughout the space, and the transaction with Foremost, I think, is also exciting for a lot of the same reasons in that properties that we were not going to work. I think they're different stories, and they offer sort of a different narrative a little bit here, like on the space. But what's really important, I think, Lucien, is that we're not looking at farming out the rest of the portfolio.
Okay.
These are two transactions that were deliberately put together with complementary companies with complementary narratives. Foremost importantly is listed on the NASDAQ. We think that's a really useful pairing with our DNN listing on the American. I think on the COSA side here, we have this incredible familiarity with the people and really high technical capability that can take these projects, know them, and make really immediate impact on them. The ones with Foremost, I think, have more like a little more grassroots to them. There's some that are more mature there. But I think what I like about that deal is we've got some support from a Jody DeRogue that involved in Foremost that has some really positive insights and can bring different perspectives there too. But this is sort of a team Denison that we've built. And the idea is really that this is it for the most part. We're really not looking to do more. We like the partnerships we've built. We like the way we've matched the projects with the companies. And we're going to try to support these companies over the next several years to make discoveries that we otherwise were not going to make because we were otherwise not going to be working the projects.
Right. David, according to the agreement, Denison commits to a minimum of 1 million participation in future equity financing. Is that obligation for one financing or that it can be in a few of them?
Yeah, it basically allows for us to maintain our 20% over the first X number of financings, whatever size they might be. And you might have seen that we were participating in the Foremost financing that was recently completed. Obviously, we're in at just under 20% on purpose, and we're not looking for that to drop rapidly or anything like that. As I sort of described earlier, we're looking to maintain a very strong shareholding and direct position in the properties. So I think the commitment in the COSA agreement is really something that would have happened in any case, but it makes it very clear to the market that we're there to support this company. It's not a sell and exit transaction at all on these properties.
Got it. Gentlemen, quick overview on your other activities. Keith, we will start with you. Quick update on the developments from COSA. You have some pending geochemical results and some other stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So we do have some pending assays from URSA where we did hit elevated radioactivity, 50 meters below the unconformity in our final drill hole of this fall drill program. We will have some more results. We did A&T surveys over top of URSA and our Orion projects. Importantly, we're going to work to close this transaction with Denison as quickly as we can. So that should be in early 2025. Then look for us updating the market on our plans for 2025. But we're just itching to get drilling at Murphy Lake North as soon as we can in 2025. So lots of news flow into December, into January here, and really excited to get going on these new projects while also continue to advance our other projects in 2025.
Okay, same question, David. I see Wheeler River is going well. Can you please give me a quick update on Wheeler and other projects, recent developments?
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to say, I mean, we're following Keith's work closely, and we think URSA is an exciting project, and so we'll certainly be paying attention to those assays. Look, Lucian, we've had an incredibly successful year in Denison. We had some really notable news recently on the Phoenix Environmental Impact Statement and EA process with the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission. This is a many-year process. We submitted a draft EIS, which is the document that really summarizes the impacts in the EA process in October of 2022. Okay, so 25 months later, we were able to clear the technical review phase, which is the most rigorous and challenging part of the federal review process and permitting process. So the technical review is complete. We've already submitted a final form EIS reflecting any of the required adjustments. And that puts us on a path now, once that's reviewed and agreed by the CNSC as meeting the sort of changes they wanted to see, for us to schedule a hearing in front of the CNSC Commission. And that's really the next most critical development. We have to be in front of the Commission, make our submissions. The CNSC staff that now have completed the technical review are essentially going to be recommending approval of the project. They have to prepare their materials. Once we're through the commission hearing phase, shortly thereafter, we would then expect to receive our license to construct. And so we're getting incredibly close to being able to actually start construction. Our target is to be able to make a final investment decision and commence construction in 2025. We have been targeting the middle of 2025 for all of our internal work streams. So detailed design engineering, procurement, project financing. That's all tracking for a mid-2025 FID. We'll see when we have the commission hearing scheduled and when we can actually achieve that, but we're optimistic it is in 2025. And then we have about a 2-year construction timeline because of the ISR mining. So it's much faster than the sort of infrastructure necessary and the construction necessary for conventional mining. That puts us into production by the end of 2027 or the beginning of 28. And that's all consistent with the guidance we've had over the last several years. But that means we're very close. And so what an outstanding year for us to get through on that. And behind the scenes, the detailed design engineering is moving rapidly. We're at the end of the third quarter, over 45% total engineering, and that's moving quickly. We would be in the range of near 100% complete by middle of next year, which is very advanced. And so as we get to that point of construction, people will start asking that because mine projects succeed and some struggle. Often it's related to the level of design engineering that's done before construction. So we will be very well complete on detailed design engineering before we start. In terms of the other projects, look, we had an incredible result with Midwest in a field test that we carried out for ISR mining. This is a joint venture with Orano, close to McLean Lake. We own 25%, Orano owns 75%. ISR test work for the first time in the field, very positive. And that's allowed us to now proceed towards finalizing a PEA, which will be the first economic report disclosure of recent history on Midwest. And look, we've seen the internal concept study. It's very positive, and the PEA will reflect a similar story. So this is a really positive catalyst for us in the coming months. And we are building our own exploration program as well. And we are budgeting and building our budgets for 2025 or 2025. And, it's going to be quite an impressive year for us in 2025 as we ready for construction and we work on our pipeline assets. What's really the last point on this, guys, is incredible, is that our balance sheet is ready for it. So we have, at the end of the third quarter, roughly $375 million in physical uranium investments in cash, which represents a really large portion of our initial CapEx in Phoenix and gives us incredible confidence to move forward in 2025 with aggressive plans. So it's only getting busier over here, but results have been excellent and we're doing very well.
Yeah, congrats on that. A lot of work for both of you guys. Thank you very much for coming to my show. Great chat. You explained a lot. This was David Cates and Keith Bodnarchuk. Thank you very much.